One federal investigation was supposed to uncover evidence in a completely different case. Instead, it led agents to something no one expected. Behind the front door of an ordinary home in Northeast Philadelphia, investigators discovered two young children living in conditions that experienced officers would later describe as among the worst they had ever seen. The floors were covered with garbage. The smell was overwhelming. Animal waste filled multiple rooms. Dead animals were found inside the house. And somehow, in the middle of it all, a 5-year-old girl and her 8-month-old brother had been trying to survive. The shocking discovery has raised a question that is now being asked across the country. How could two children end up living like this without anyone stopping it? This is the story of the Philadelphia house that investigators never expected to find. On July 7, 2026, FBI agents arrived at a home on Whitaker Avenue in Northeast Philadelphia. They were not investigating child abuse. According to authorities, the search warrant was connected to a completely separate federal investigation involving alleged threats directed at the White House. The operation was expected to focus on evidence related to that investigation. Instead, as agents entered the property, their attention immediately shifted. The conditions inside the home were impossible to ignore. Trash covered much of the floor. Animal feces and urine were spread throughout multiple rooms. Investigators reported a powerful odor that could be detected almost immediately after entering. Running water was reportedly unavailable in parts of the house. What agents discovered next made the situation even more alarming. Inside the home were two children, a 5-year-old girl and her 8-month-old baby brother. According to court documents, both children appeared to have been living inside these conditions for an extended period of time. Medical personnel were called immediately. The children were removed from the house and transported to a local hospital for evaluation. Doctors reportedly observed numerous insect bites on both children. The infant was also found to have bruising that required further examination. While investigators focused on protecting the children, another team began documenting the rest of the property. What they found suggested that the home had deteriorated far beyond what most people could imagine. Room after room contained piles of garbage mixed with animal waste. Numerous cats were found wandering throughout the house. Several dead animals were also discovered inside. Authorities later confirmed that animal welfare organizations had to assist with removing dozens of surviving animals from the property. Some were frightened and difficult to capture. Others were found in extremely poor health. Officials eventually declared the house unsafe for human habitation. For investigators, however, the condition of the property was only one part of the mystery. The larger question was becoming impossible to ignore. How long had these children been living there? That question remains one of the most important parts of the ongoing investigation. Neighbors later told reporters they had noticed unpleasant odors coming from the property for quite some time. Some said they rarely saw the family outside. Others admitted they had no idea young children were living inside the house at all. Those statements have created another difficult question. Were there warning signs that everyone missed? At this stage, authorities have not publicly confirmed whether Child Protective Services had received previous complaints involving the family. Investigators are continuing to review records to determine whether any earlier reports existed. Meanwhile, detectives began interviewing the children's parents. The answers they received would soon lead to criminal charges. The investigation quickly shifted from documenting the condition of the home to understanding how two young children had been left in such an environment. As detectives continued gathering evidence, medical examinations provided a clearer picture of what the children had endured. According to investigators, both children showed signs of prolonged neglect. The 5-year-old girl had multiple insect bites across her body. The 8-month-old infant also had insect bites, along with bruising that doctors believed required further investigation. While authorities have not publicly released the complete medical findings, officials considered the children's condition serious enough to place them under immediate protective care. After receiving treatment at the hospital, both children were transferred into the custody of Philadelphia's Department of Human Services. For the first time in what may have been months, they were living in a clean and safe environment. Back at the house, investigators continued processing the scene. Every room had to be photographed. Evidence had to be collected. Animal control officers and the Pennsylvania SPCA worked alongside law enforcement to remove the surviving animals from the property. Officials reported finding dozens of cats inside the home. Some animals were hiding beneath furniture. Others had become trapped inside overcrowded rooms. Several dead animals were also recovered during the search. The condition of the property was so severe that crews spent hours safely removing both living and deceased animals. Authorities later determined that the home was no longer suitable for human occupancy. As investigators pieced together the evidence, attention turned to the adults responsible for the children. 43-year-old Thomas Bach and 44-year-old Megan Bach were taken into custody. Prosecutors accused the couple of allowing their children to remain in conditions that endangered both their physical health and their safety. The criminal complaint included multiple charges, including endangering the welfare of children, reckless endangerment, criminal conspiracy, and possession of an offensive weapon. At this stage of the case, authorities have not publicly explained how the weapon charge relates to the child neglect investigation. That detail may become clearer as additional court documents are released. The arrests answered one question: who was responsible for the home? But they left many others unanswered. How long had the children been living under these conditions? Did anyone outside the family know what was happening? Were there opportunities to intervene before federal agents accidentally uncovered the situation? Those questions are now part of the ongoing investigation. One of the most unusual aspects of this case is how it was discovered. The FBI was never looking for abused children. Agents were executing a federal search warrant connected to an unrelated investigation. Had that warrant never been issued, investigators might never have entered the home that day. That fact has led many observers to wonder how much longer the children would have remained inside those conditions if the unrelated investigation had never crossed paths with their lives. Cases involving severe child neglect often reveal missed warning signs only after a tragedy has already occurred. Investigators will now examine medical records, interviews, digital evidence, and any previous contacts with government agencies to determine whether this case followed a similar pattern. Every timeline matters. Every phone call matters. Every report that was made or never made could become an important piece of the investigation. As prosecutors prepare for court proceedings, detectives continue reviewing evidence collected from inside the house. Additional forensic examinations, laboratory testing, and witness interviews are still underway. Officials have indicated that the investigation remains active, meaning additional information or even additional charges could emerge as more evidence is analyzed. For now, the two children are safe, but the investigation is far from over. The next phase will focus on reconstructing exactly what happened inside that house, how long it continued, and whether anyone had an opportunity to stop it before federal agents made one unexpected discovery that changed everything. As investigators continued examining the evidence, attention shifted beyond the condition of the house itself. The next challenge was reconstructing the children's daily lives. For detectives, understanding what happened inside the home meant answering hundreds of small questions. Who cared for the children each day? Were they receiving regular medical checkups? Did they attend daycare or preschool? Did neighbors, relatives, teachers, or healthcare providers ever notice signs that something was wrong? At this stage, many of those questions remain unanswered. Authorities have not publicly released a complete timeline showing how long the family had been living in the house or how long the conditions had existed. That uncertainty has become one of the most important parts of the investigation. Cases involving severe neglect rarely develop overnight. Homes typically deteriorate over weeks, months, or even years. Investigators are now trying to determine whether the living conditions gradually became worse or whether a sudden event caused the situation to spiral out of control. Digital evidence may provide some of those answers. Detectives are expected to examine cell phones, computers, financial records, and online activity to better understand the family's circumstances leading up to the discovery. Investigators may also review utility records. If electricity, water, or other essential services were interrupted for long periods, those records could help establish a timeline. Another focus of the investigation involves the animals found inside the house. Authorities removed dozens of cats along with at least one dog. Several animals were already dead by the time investigators entered the property. Animal welfare experts are now conducting their own investigation to determine whether additional animal cruelty charges could be appropriate. Conditions that place animals at risk often create serious health hazards for children. Decomposing animal remains can attract insects and bacteria. Animal waste can contaminate surfaces and the air inside enclosed spaces. For infants whose immune systems are still developing, prolonged exposure to these conditions can increase the risk of serious illness. Medical professionals caring for the two children will continue monitoring them for any health complications related to prolonged neglect. Beyond their physical recovery, specialists also recognize the emotional impact such environments can have on young children. Children who spend extended periods living in unsafe or chaotic conditions may experience developmental delays, anxiety, or difficulty trusting adults. Because of their ages, the 5-year-old girl and her infant brother are unlikely to fully understand the criminal investigation unfolding around them. Their immediate needs now involve stability, medical care, and emotional support. Meanwhile, prosecutors are building their case against the parents. To secure convictions, they must prove more than poor housekeeping. They must demonstrate that the defendants knowingly or recklessly allowed conditions that place the children in danger. That distinction is important. Messy homes are not automatically criminal. Neglect becomes a criminal matter when living conditions create substantial risks to a child's health or safety. Evidence collected inside the house, photographs taken during the search, medical evaluations, witness testimony, and expert analysis will all play important roles as the case moves through the court system. For investigators, however, one question still overshadows everything else. If the FBI had not arrived that day to investigate an entirely different case, when would anyone have discovered what was happening inside that house? That question has no answer yet, but it may become one of the defining questions of the entire investigation. The next stage of the case will likely reveal whether there were missed opportunities, overlooked warning signs, or failures within the system that allowed 2 young children to remain hidden in such dangerous conditions for so long. As the criminal case moves forward, investigators are expected to spend months reviewing every piece of evidence collected from the property. The condition of the home tells only part of the story. To understand what happened, detectives must determine how the family lived day after day, what resources were available to them, and whether anyone outside the home recognized that the children were in danger. Court proceedings will likely answer some of those questions. Search warrant records, photographs, forensic reports, and witness testimony could eventually become part of the public record. Those documents may reveal details that investigators have chosen not to release while the case remains active. The children's future is another important part of the story. For privacy reasons, authorities have released very little information about where they are now or who is caring for them. That is common in cases involving young children. Protecting their identities and allowing them to recover safely often takes priority over releasing information to the public. Experts say that recovery from severe neglect is rarely immediate. Children who have lived in unsafe environments may need ongoing medical treatment, developmental assessments, counseling, and long-term support. The goal is not only to address the physical effects of neglect, but also to help them rebuild a sense of safety and stability. For the justice system, the focus now shifts to accountability. Prosecutors must present evidence showing that the parents knowingly allowed conditions that endangered their children. The defense will have an opportunity to challenge that evidence and present its own explanation in court. Like every criminal case in the United States, the defendants are presumed innocent unless proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. That legal principle remains in place until the court reaches a final verdict. This case has also reignited a broader public discussion. Across the country, child welfare experts often point out that severe neglect can remain hidden behind closed doors. Unlike violent crimes that occur in public, neglect may continue for long periods without attracting attention, especially when families have limited contact with schools, healthcare providers, or neighbors. The Philadelphia investigation is a reminder that some of the most serious cases begin with an unexpected discovery rather than a report of abuse. In this instance, federal agents were investigating an unrelated matter. The children were found only because law enforcement entered the home for a completely different reason. That coincidence may have changed the course of 2 young lives. As investigators continue reviewing evidence, additional charges remain possible if new information emerges. Animal welfare authorities are also continuing their separate investigation into the condition of the animals found inside the home. For now, many of the most important questions remain unanswered. How long had the children been living in those conditions? Were there warning signs that someone overlooked? Could earlier intervention have prevented the situation from reaching this point? Those answers may only become clear as more evidence is presented in court. Until then, the Philadelphia case stands as another reminder that behind the walls of an ordinary house, an entirely different reality can exist, one that may remain invisible until a single unexpected event brings it into the light. Thank you for watching. What do you think is the biggest unanswered question in this case? Do you believe this tragedy could have been prevented, or was its discovery simply a matter of chance? Share your thoughts in the comments below.